Yes, would you introduce yourself, please?
Hello there, my name is Dana Myers. I am the Vice Chairman of Harris County.
Very good. Well, we are going to ask you a battery of questions here, and Tracy and I will take turns, and I'm going to go first. And at the end of reading our questions, we'll tell you what your time limit is for that question answer. So the first one is, where can the job description of the RPT Vice Chair be found? And you have 30 seconds.
I believe the job description can be found in the platform and in the party website as well.
Thank you.
Define the vice chair role in relation to the chairman and the grassroots. You have 1 minute.
My understanding of the vice chairman's role, just like I do in Harris County, is that you are there to support the chairman, the SREC, their committees, the legislative priorities, and the platform.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question is 2 parts. So I'm going to ask you the first part. You'll have 2 minutes to answer that, and then the second part you'll have 1 minute. So part 1, name 2 specific projects that would, 1, expand the party with those who hold true Republican values as defined in our platform, and 2, that you would work for to achieve measurable results. 2 minutes.
There's a large series of things I'd like to help with, but my priorities, the first would be election integrity. That is of utmost importance. I know Melissa Conway is our current state person for that, and I've worked with her both in Harris County because obviously we've had issues with our Democrat election administrator. That is the first. The second also is making sure that we train and educate our precinct chairs and our county chairs. I have plans on how to try to, on the first objective, is actually try to communicate with the various groups around Texas, locate the groups that are working on election integrity, and try to bring them together in the sense of having a round table so that they can communicate what they're learning, what they're facing, where they need help, and see if we can muster resources for that. Because I think a lot of times we function in silos and actually don't move the ball as far forward as we can. The second, which as far as the training of precinct chairs and county chairs, I know that there are programs already out there that are established by the Republican Party of Texas. I want to make sure that we're as current as we could be with those training manuals and make sure that they're both manuals as well as perhaps some video education, online Zoom interactions with them so they can, I know a lot of people don't want to travel. It's a big state. Witness that firsthand. And so if there's a way that we can bring the training to them and make it more convenient, that's what I would like to do.
Okay, part 2, you hit on this a little bit already, but do you have any experience working for these 2 issues already? And if so, what's been the specific outcome thus far? 1 minute.
Okay, so with Harris County, with our elections that we just went through, my experience with election integrity is a little bit different than Melissa's, obviously. We are trying to institute election judges and assistant judges and poll watcher training throughout our county. We have an excellent ballot security committee that does that, and we are overseeing that as vice chair and chairman. I would say from a personal level, when we filed lawsuits against the Democrat election administrator who was trying to break the law in Harris County, that is clearly where we drew the line. And so I think we're on our 4th iteration of that. Regarding the precinct chair training and county chair training, I've spent the past couple of years traveling on my own time and gas money to go to various counties around Texas to try to offer the precinct chair and county chair training. I think to this point, there's been about 53 different counties I've touched.
Thank you.
In the preamble and principles of the RPT platform, it lists several principles that the RPT promotes. Please name as many as you can in 2 minutes.
Personal responsibility, freedom, traditional marriage between a man and wife. Sorry, I'm having a senior moment. Faith in God, and I'm sorry, I'm sure I'm blanking on the rest of them right now. A little nervous.
Thank you.
Next question. Think about the word unity and any controlling parameters that should define how this concept would most effectively apply to the mission of the Republican Party of Texas. How would you, as vice chair, promote unity among the different factions of the party? And you have 2 minutes.
I know that word unity is often a catch-all that can be misunderstood and misapplied. When I speak of unity within the party, I'm also recognizing that we are a very wonderful, diverse group of individuals and groups with lots of different ideas. I think in my estimation, when I talk about unity, it's trying to move the ball forward on the areas that we agree on without having people compromise their values or their goals. I think sometimes people call for unity, and the misinterpretation is that they believe everyone has to walk lockstep, exactly the same beliefs, the same way they do things, and that's not what I believe. I think we're a wonderful, diverse group of individuals with great strengths, and all the grassroots groups, every individual has something to share. I would like to find, by creating relationships and open dialogue between the groups and our precinct chairs and our county chairs and our state party and our local parties, find the areas where we agree on and where we can work together and then move forward that way. But I don't expect a one-size-fits-all. I don't think that's what I want, and it's certainly not reasonable.
Thank you.
Mindful efficiency and purposeful effectiveness are vital ingredients to success in any endeavor. Please describe how you would apply these to the workings of the SREC. 2 minutes.
Can you mention that first word again? I'm sorry.
Mindful efficiency.
I think that applies to all of us as conservatives. My goal in life has always tried to be as most efficient with my time and energy and money as possible, because none of us have enough of any of those things. I think I know there are SRECs that have committee chairs and have their committees built out, and we'll see what happens after the convention to where those assignments are. I've spoken to a number of the SREC, and they have plans already. I'd like us, again, it goes back to coordinating efforts without usurping someone else's role, but see where we can help them achieve their goals, and try to save as much money as we can, so that if Team A over here is working on something and another group is working on the same thing, perhaps if they pool some of their resources, we can make the time more efficient for them as well as the money.
Thank you.
Define what you believe is the ultimate measure of the state Republican Executive Committee. So, in other words, if they had a report card on what should they be graded, and you have 1 minute.
I think it's important to have metrics of success in everything that we do. How stringent those are applied are obviously going to be dependent on what, if we're talking about personal behavior, I'd like to have everyone lead by example. If we're talking about actually accomplishing X amount of meetings per session in their SREC committee, I think that may be something to look at, to have and they may have this already. I'm not as familiar with SREC, but besides the quarterly meetings, if the committees themselves are having meetings and have metrics of success, are they effective? Are they accomplishing goals that they've set?
Thank you.
Okay, this will be a two-part question. The first part, in June, the convention delegates will adopt 8 legislative priorities. The SREC Legislative Priorities Committee is charged with working to get these priorities passed. Please describe how you would support accomplishment of the legislative priorities. You have 2 minutes.
Well, I think that Jill has done an outstanding job in the past getting the information to the average Republican and conservative in the state. I find it very hard when people say, we don't have any idea what's going on. So, well, then you should read the emails that you're getting, or feel free to attend these multiple meetings, because they're discussed openly and frequently. I think also, again, without beating that horse, coordinating with the other grassroots groups to make sure that they're distributing those legislative updates and calls to action to make sure that they actually motivate and mobilize their people to help support getting these through in the legislative session and showing up to testify, training people how to testify. I know that some groups have done that, but then sometimes I meet people who don't even know how to read a TLO report, and I'm still learning. I'll be the first one to say that, but know they exist and know where to find the information. So I would say the information's out there. We need to do a better job of trying to disseminate that on not the legislative committee, but on the rest of the grassroots, to try to amplify and strengthen that voice that the legislative people do listen to us and do get things through committee.
Part 2, if the Republican governor, lieutenant governor, and House Speaker do not agree with the Republican Party Texas legislative priorities, how will that impact your effort? 1 minute.
I think it's been shown that we have our legislative priorities, and many times our legislative body does not listen to us, which is unfortunate. I've thought about this, especially applying for this job. I think first, trying to be respectful and build those relationships where possible to, at minimum, pick up the phone and say, hey, I want you to understand that this is what this many groups believe, this is the strength of these numbers, and we will hold you accountable in the election season. I think that's as nicely put as I can make it.
Thank you.
Have you ever endorsed or helped a Democrat running for office? If so, who, when, and for what office? And you have 1 minute.
Short answer, no, never. That was the best question yet. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Sadly, the 9th commandment, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, from Exodus 20:16, is the first casualty of politics. It should not be so among professed Christians. In your race for vice chair, have there been any misconceptions, rumors, or false witness tale-bearing spun to demean you that you would like to address now? You have 2 minutes.
Yes, my campaign team and myself have gotten reports that somehow I'm a mastermind behind recruiting and training moderate precinct chairs to take over the state. I was sent that text thread, and I almost had to, besides thinking this is ludicrous, in Harris County, the precinct chairs we've recruited and trained are on the conservative end of the spectrum, and certainly the data that we're using to train other precinct chairs is just reflective of their voting record. I by no means have tried to put in moderate precinct chairs all over. In fact, if I did, I'd probably be queen of the state and my husband would have won his land race, which clearly didn't happen. So I think that's one. The other that I heard recently is that somehow I'm an establishment candidate. I will also go back to, again, that I've done nothing but work with the grassroots and try to get the job done. I've also spent the past year of my life and then some with my husband on the campaign trail, running essentially as an anti-establishment candidate, and we've essentially self-funded as well as small dollar donations and no PAC money. So I thank you for giving me the opportunity to clear that up.
Sure. Thank you.
The falsehoods.
So recently, the Republican National Committee has attempted to establish a gay pride coalition with the Log Cabin Republicans. What are your thoughts about this? Would you support the Log Cabin Republicans having a booth at the Texas State Convention? Will you promote the Log Cabin Republicans in Texas politics? And you have 2 minutes.
Thank you for asking that question. I've been asked that question a bunch on the campaign trail, and no, I do not support them as a booth, and no, I do not support them as an affiliate. And no, I was not aware that the RNC was promoting a bandwidth for them.
Okay, thank you.
What is your stance on abortion? You have 30 seconds.
I am pro-life from conception to natural death.
Thank you.
Give us your thoughts on closed primaries, and you have 30 seconds.
I definitely am in favor of closed primaries. I don't know all the machinations of haven't gamed that out as far as the repercussions for our turnout. I actually think it may help our turnout. But I am for closed primaries. I do think that we've had Democrats and independents cross over and vote. In fact, I know there's a lady down in Rio Grande Valley who is actually looking at the voter roll, or the voter, she's FOIA'd the Democrat and Republican side to make sure they're not voting in both primaries. And I think that's an excellent idea.
Thank you.
Last question. From what sources will you look to increase donor dollars for the party? Are there any sources that are off limits? 1 minute.
I'm not one to compromise on my principles, so I'm not going to be looking for money from groups that are not supporting the Republican Party of Texas platform. That's the biggest answer. Second is, yes, I do think there's, we've been blessed in the state to have a lot of amazing, successful people who support the conservative effort. I think that we need to show them a plan, metrics of success, and how we plan to get from point A to B, and I think people are willing to join that effort. I also think now, as people wake up from the terrible policies of the Biden administration with inflation and skyrocketing prices and supply chain issues, I think more and more people will want to join the effort to try to protect our state. So I don't see that as an insurmountable hurdle at all.